Are we live? Ladies and gentlemen, we are live once again. How about that? We are coming at you live and in color from our secret undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. This is your somewhat politically savvy minded host, Abby Kaufman here. And we've got a treat today. We've got to interview Matthew Adams, who is the candidate for State Assembly from District 9, which is in the Central Valley Delta region. And this has got to be a huge area. I mean, I think it touched on like 5 or 6 counties. So we'll look forward to Matthew giving us a little bit of his background. And sorry about that. There's a little apparently there's a little emergency. But anyway, Matthew's going to give us a little bit about his background growing up near Lodi. And anyway, it'd be exciting. It's always great when people run for political office. And I just, I want to try to chat with and help as many people as I can get elected because I have this mouthpiece, this forum here that's dedicated to that purpose. It's dedicated to Democrats, and more Democrats being elected. I tell people I don't care if I just don't want the assistant to the dog catcher to be a Democrat, and I don't want the assistant to the assistant to be a Democrat. I want the assistant to the assistant's assistants to be a Democrat. So just so we're kind of clear on that, Democracy Radio Network is a textbook Democratic-friendly platform. We appreciate our callers, whether they are Democrat, liberal, progressive. That's about all we get. And you know what? Let's open those phone lines real quick and see if anybody is up to chatting or chatting, venting, and arguing. I mean, if you want to get something to vent about, I'm your guy. Number here is 949-629-3820, and the lines are open. And let's see, well, Matthew will be joining us in about I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes, or we'll just kind of see when he's ready in the backstage. How about that? And guys, today I want to mention a few things just before Matthew comes on because they are really serious. It's just heart wrenching, and I have no idea what the solution is. And Vladimir Zelensky keeps begging for interceptor drones or interceptor missiles, and Trump told him no. And these guys have been pummeled for 4 years. And at every opportunity, if Trump gets a chance to put his finger on the scale, it'll be in favor of Vladimir Putin. And when we ever find out what Putin's sway is over Trump, I just can't wait. I mean, I can't imagine. And it's either something incredibly complex that Trump's really proud of, or something incredibly stupid that he's still incredibly proud of. And another thing, I raised this question the other day, and it was about the list of master spies that Trump asked for. And the names of human intelligence are very closely guarded. Need to know. These people could get killed. I mean, or tortured. Killing might be a good thing. Imagine the torture they might have to go through to get there. But anyway, the president has this nifty list. And, I think we kind of know that Trump has a history of selling things. And I asked this question, how much would it take to buy it from Trump? Where would you get his interest? Where would you get his attention? And I think that you might, at the low end, you might want to walk in with $100 billion, just, to let him know you're kind of serious. And from there, it probably goes to $500 billion. And then, what the last stop on the train is, right? Muskville, $1 trillion. Would Trump sell the entire U.S. intelligence network for $1 trillion? I think I'd kind of bet that way. I mean, how could you not? Everything else is for sale, and guys, why are you letting all this stuff? And this is kind of a Republican-oriented question. Why are you guys putting up with this? Why are you guys, sanctioning criminal activity in the White House? Why? I mean, and I was thinking that after Cornyn and what's his name had held out against Todd Blanche, I kind of thought, well, geez, somebody, and then Murkowski and Susan Collins joined, so you had four, and Bill Mike, was it Bill Kennedy from Louisiana, uh, who caved. Anyway, all these people caved, and it's just they. What I was thinking was when Cornyn didn't cave and went up saying yes, he'd support Blanche, I took that to mean that the last adult with anything vaguely resembling a backbone or some distant memory of integrity, because that's all we get these days. So, with that cheerful note, let's see what else is going on in the world today. Oh, and how about this? Just as I'm sure everybody's kind of noticed the weather changes and the fires all over Europe and the storms of war, so on and so forth. Now, and you know how I consider Trump the AI president, and AI is of course absent intelligence. And to that end, he's going to pay, I think, a German firm $1.2 billion to get out of a green energy contract. Now, I kind of look around the world. I'm like, are these decisions intentionally brought to just destroy the U.S.? And I'm convinced they are. Like I said, just as I'm convinced he would sell that list of U.S. spies, I'm convinced this sort of destruction is just wanton. And as if we didn't get a clue. I wish I did a little music video of what I do. Hank Williams, sorry, "You're Cheating Hard," which I redid for the president. And it's just he's just such a simple guy with such a limited. He had limited brain power anyway. Now he's got limited brain power and 80 years old after I would imagine most of a lifetime of McDonald's cheeseburgers and Diet Cokes and some reason I don't exactly mistake him for a gym rat. So, how this guy's is still standing, God only knows. But I think that's where all the, and, he's always been weird. So the weirdness just, sometimes people don't evolve. Sometimes they just develop into a bigger version of themselves. And if that can happen, it happened with Trump. Okay, so we got 1.2. But, and did I mention that price tag on the Trump warships just went up 50%? These are Trump class warships that we have no need for. And but then again, he saw some Finnish icebreakers, big ships, and bought a fleet of them. We have no infrastructure to maintain them, but damn, if we're not going to own them. And you gotta. He keeps coming back to this Greenland stuff and the icebreakers. Oh, but just to show you how thoroughly committed he is to pollution and coal and oil and all that fossil fuels. He ordered 250 new Escalades, and I'm not like a supercar guy or anything, but I know those things like big and black and weigh a ton. And oh, by the way, was that part of the fleet that drove through the reflecting pool and kind of helped damage the bottom? The deceptiveness is just astounding, and not only is the deceptiveness astounding, but so is the administration's ability to sit there with a straight face and just no, that's not the world. And at some point, reality just kind of caves. And what I think is that around whatever time it is, and Trump always has his human printer with him. And I'm sure she's, a sweet person who probably just got brainwashed somewhere along the line. But my favorite was, somebody asked him about a poll that showed he's down 34%, and Trump dismisses that as fake news and all this stuff. And then he turns to the human printer and says, "Let me have the real poll, or show me something with the real poll." So, of course, this could have been a poll of like, if you polled 100 people who voted for Trump before, you know what I mean? It could be a really picky sample, as is. I love this, has claimed that despite what we lose 22,000 jobs last quarter, last month, in spite of that, how just great things are going. I mean, anyway, we'll have plenty of time to get worked up with that between now and November. And like I said, in the meantime, what I'd like to encourage everybody to at least think about is join a Democrat Party, the party and/or a local club. Get involved. Meetings are once a month, and it's amazing what it's like to be around like-minded people. I joined the Newport Beach Women's Democratic Club, and then I joined the Costa Mesa Democrats, and also the Laguna Beach Democrats. And of course, everybody's got a little interest and a little different view on things, which is all the more reason to join more than one. For instance, I've noticed that the guys in Laguna Beach have a little more national or international view. Newport's fairly local and tight. Costa Mesa is fairly young and kind of business oriented, and it's just priceless to get to hang out with them. And I don't go there for the free pizza like the other media guys. Don't let that fool you. And let's see here. Oh, and another thing is that when Trump rushes to get things done, not like any child, when you rush to get things done, you usually make a mess and/or leave a mess. And Trump's really good at leaving the mess. And just as a general aside, I've always thought that good people created and bad people destroyed. But anyway, so between the AI chip gyrations that he's going through, oh, and did I mention Google is putting up, I think, $200 billion to spend on further AI, whatever it is. And I think that thing generates like $2 billion a year. So it's, and that's why the money's so huge and why the market's so rocky, or I mean, so rocking along. What I do think is people just like trying to get on the boat while it's still more or less affordable, and then when the reality hits, those tech stocks are just going to cave. And not only that, but I guess you noticed Scott Bessent has been really keen to help Japan buy yen to strengthen the economy. And now I'm all for helping people's economies, but in the background, people started to sell our treasuries. And when people sell your bonds, that means they have some doubt as to whether they'll get paid and how much. And bondholders aren't in it for the excitement. I mean, bondholders want that nice, slow, steady return, first dibs on in bankruptcy, all that stuff. So against the backdrop of what the bond market is doing, he's helping Japan. And if you recall, a couple months ago, in the middle of the night, I forgot what it was Trump did, but in the middle of the night to kind of get his attention, Japan started just dumping bonds. I mean, lights going off, phones going off all over New York. You can't imagine. And it's just a comedy of errors. Even the people you would thought have had some level of competence and/or credibility just don't. I mean, you kind of held out some hope that Bessent might just kind of work by the numbers and be a down the middle kind of guy. But see, Trump doesn't do that. It's funny. If you don't hire people for ability and competence, what does that kind of leave? Well, it leaves you with people that probably lack ability and confidence. And so think about this. In the last, year and a half, Trump has restructured things such that, like in chains of command, there's a direct line from him to the Attorney General to the lowliest U.S. attorney or U.S. magistrate anywhere. And I say, guys, this is 2028. I'm sorry, the midterms are really, really going to set us well for 2028. I watched the race in Michigan between El Sayed and Haley Stevens. And, El Sayed was clearly more polished and just, as I live and breathe, I believe we have Matthew Adams with us. Let's bring him on. Matthew, how you doing? Can you hear me? Matthew? Oh, Matthew. Matthew, can you hear me? You got to be able to hear me. Well, we hope this comes through. Maybe I'll text him and see what we can find out here. Matthew, you really don't, you're not hearing a word I say, are you? Okay. Let's see. How do we do this? Matthew, so can you come on? Matthew? Matthew? Can you hear me? Matthew? Matthew, can you hear me? You can hear me? Can you hear me, Matthew? I can't hear you at all. I still can't hear you. It's got to be something on your end. Is your microphone, you hit the mic button and all that?
Testing, testing.
Oh, bless you, bless you. Now we have contact. So,
Okay,
Matthew,
all right.
sorry about that. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
All things considered, it's okay. It sounds like your mic might have just gone out. Are we okay?
Yeah, I guess
Oh,
if you can hear me,
good
we're good.
deal. Good deal. So, Matthew, tell me, you're running for state assembly from District 9, and that's Central Valley Delta region?
Yeah, it's right around the Delta region. So Manteca and Lodi are the largest cities in the district. So we're right around the North Central Valley.
Well, I'm always curious. How did you get here? How did you make the determination to do this?
Yeah, this race was an interesting one. It's gone unchallenged for a long time. The incumbent that we've had hasn't had anybody running against him really from the Democratic Party for really the entirety of the time that he's been in our district. And my background is I've worked on campaigns. I've worked for political nonprofits in years past. So politics has always kind of been in my mind, in my career space. And this race was an opportunity to get some better representation for my district. So that's why I decided to jump in.
I noticed you had a huge background that just seemed to kind of thrive around collaboration, and that should you get to the assembly, everything's going to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So, yeah, my background, aside from being in campaigns, which is obviously a very team friendly environment, I was a teacher right before this, which, you have to work with a large team, roughly, 30, 25 coworkers, depending on how many students are in your class.
Right.
So, it's a very collaborative background that I come from. And yeah, looking forward to doing that in the assembly.
Well, good deal. Tell me, how many campaign appearances do you try to get in on a weekend?
Oh, it's been pretty busy. So I've been running for about a year as of this week. We try and get it out several times a week in one of the three major cities, Galt, Lodi, Manteca, at least once a week. This week has been incredibly busy. I've had something going on every day. I've got this obviously today. I've got a house party later tonight, tomorrow, early morning canvassing, and then another party in the evening for supporters, and same thing going on Sunday. So we're pretty busy.
Well, just out of curiosity, do you have any idea how many square miles the district is?
Ooh, I've never sat down and calculated it, but I know that we are 5 different counties that we touch. So we're in San Joaquin County, Sacramento County, Stanislaus County, Amador, and Calaveras. So it's quite massive.
Oh, I can't imagine the logistics in getting you around to campaign events. Wow.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so tell me, why are you running? What do you want to do when you get there?
Yeah, so my main priority has always been getting money out of politics. That's the thing that's frustrated me the most about our
Oh,
politics
bless you,
today.
my son.
Yeah, yeah, and I know I'm not alone in that. As I said, I mean, the representation that we have right now is kind of the poster child for corruption and money in politics. There was a news story that just broke this week about how he spent $16,000 at a dive bar in campaign money just in Sacramento. So, if you're saying there's not a money problem in politics, look at Keith Flora, my opponent, and say that with a straight face. We need to have somebody in there who's going to, I think, a quick solution would be making sure you can limit campaign expenditures to just within your district. A lot of people, will go to LA, go to San Francisco, and go and do these lavish parties on their donors' dollars. And, that doesn't make any sense. But that's, a little inside baseball. For the constituents that are going to be in their day to day lives, what are they going to see change in the district? As a teacher, of course, education is close to my heart. We all know that there's been a real problem in the education field, not just in California, but nationwide. Since the pandemic, we've lost a lot of academic years. Our students have been really through the ringer. It was an unprecedented event that happened 6 years ago and continued into many years after that. Class sizes really grew because a lot of teachers left the field and never came back because of all sorts of reasons. Chiefly among them, they're not being compensated enough, right? So we need to work with the teachers unions. We need to work with the teachers to make sure that they can get compensated. And I say just the teachers, but it's not just the teachers. There's the classified employees, there's the teachers' aides. All of them, are struggling right now as well. And for our 1 million students in California who have English not as their first language, we need bilingual people in classrooms, at least one in every school across the state. Uh, Overall, affordability is the issue. I'm sure you've had a lot of people on your show talk about affordability, and I'm going to be another one. Uh, Particularly in our region, one of the most important issues when it comes to affordability, housing. There's a homelessness problem in our county, and obviously there is across the state. A lot of the reason for that in our region is, well, twofold. One, we're not building enough homes, and two, we are not building the right type of homes. There was a study done that looked at San Joaquin County, the major county in my district, and looked over the last 20 years, showed over 95% of all new homes built were single family homes. And, single family homes are great. I grew up in one myself, but they don't fit everyone's needs. And they're more costly than affordable homes, multifamily homes, apartment buildings. We need to work together with the construction companies to get more of those places built. And we need to make sure that they get built faster because you get people coming into our area from out of the district, a lot of times from the Bay Area with larger salaries and different needs than ours. And they're more than welcome to come into our district. We've got a lot of cities that are really having great population growth, and these cities are becoming more diverse. The cities are becoming larger and they're becoming better cities. But if the people who have lived there can't afford homes there, then we got a problem. And that's something we need to change.
You know, I always thought you had to bend over backwards and give kids everything because it's not like they exactly asked to be here.
Yeah.
We owe them. And how's the school board down there?
The school board,
Yes, or up there.
it's fine. It'll vary from place to place, right? I mean, there's a lot of it's a slightly conservative district that I'm in. We've got a Republican
Okay.
incumbent, and the school boards tend to lean that way as well. So there'll be discussion every couple of meetings about maybe whether we should ban this book or that book, and
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and there's always a fight on vaccines and that stuff. So some school board members are really good. I've gotten a few to endorse my campaign, and we are looking at the progressive future for what schools can be, and there's a lot of concerned parents that want better futures for their kids. Without a majority in a lot of these school boards, it's tough to see a lot of that progress because there's priorities that are not rooted in reality a lot of times.
And Matthew, you just stated a simple truth. You have to get voted in to have any power and influence. If you're in the minority, you don't have much. But once you get
Yeah.
a little, once you get that slight majority, it's the wind clears up at least a little cleaner to sail in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I've worked with, particularly in Galt. Galt is one of the most conservative cities in the district, but we spent a lot of time there with organizers and concerned parents who are, we're running we're running a slate for school board with me. We're out there together talking to folks. We've got people going to the school board meetings, the city council meetings, and while we're not elected right now, they definitely know who we are, and they're definitely thinking of us as a bit of a thorn in their side. We're not going to make it easy for them to get their stuff through right now.
Well, just out of curiosity, how long has the incumbent been in office?
So for assembly, he has been in office for 10 years. So he's running for what would be his final term with the California term limits. You get 12 years in, either house, legislative house combined. He spent all 10 of his last years in the assembly, and that's the incumbent that we've got. Yeah.
Well, do you guys debate, or how do will you get to I say go up against them one on one in any community forums?
I'd love to. And during the primary, we had quite a competitive field because a lot of people are fed up with this guy, even in his own party. So there were 3 different Republicans running against him, and then there was another Democrat that was running. So there were 6 total candidates. In the primary, 4 of us would usually show up to the candidate forums and the debates. So it would be me and the 3 opponent Republicans hashing it out there, talking about all the ways we can compare and contrast against the guy that's not in the room. He never does interviews. He never does community appearances. It's hard to get in touch with this guy. So, I made it through the primary, and it's just him and me now. If he is willing to do any debates and forums, I'm going to be there. I've already agreed to one in Stanislaus County coming up next month. So we'll see if he'll show or not. But, we've got all these appearances ready to go on our end.
So I got to ask a question: how many people were in the primary?
So 6. There's 6 candidates.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations, double. I mean, that must have taken a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a big fight. Most of us were first time candidates in that race. I'm a first time candidate myself, so it was a lot of figuring out process. Some of them were congenial. There was one guy who was running as a Republican that there was times after the forums he would call me up. It's like, hey, great job up there. You really represented your side. I was like, hey, back at you. I hope it's me and you. And I knew it wasn't going to be him because he was too much of a reasonable guy. And unfortunately, a lot of those people don't get through on the other side. As much as we really want to care for our fellow citizens, you see who gets elected time and time again, right? But it was a lot of work coordinating to get my name out there. As a teacher and as a community organizer, I'm not somebody that's necessarily chasing the headlines in my personal life. So I had to introduce myself to my neighbors and other folks. Even though I've lived in this city for the last 30 years, all my life, you're not out there making a name for yourself. You're not going to be known by folks. So a lot of the first couple of months was just going to as many places as I could and getting my name out there. And, luckily it all worked out.
Well, I got to tell you, Matthew, that speaks volumes. I mean, I always like when my representatives have a little determination about them, and you clearly were determined to get this done. And I was talking about El Sayed and Haley Stevens in Michigan the other day, and and at some point you try to bring people together, which your background is naturally lends itself to. And when he kept saying, "There's more that unites us than divides us," I think that every Democrat everywhere ought to have that phrase handy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am out canvassing every weekend, and during the primary, I ended up talking a lot more to Democrats because I needed to get through the primary, and I knew that they'd be the ones to vote for me because of my party affiliation. But now, in general, I'm talking to a lot of non-party preference independents and even some Republicans, and the conversations that I have at the doors with them, I'll tell them what I am. I'm not going to be, dishonest and not tell them that I'm a progressive guy and I've got these certain policies. But there's a lot that we'll have in common because we'll start with a place of, do you feel represented right now in any of your government on any level, up and down? And a lot of times, even if people are in the same party as the people that represent them one way or the other, they'll say no, right? Like, I've never talked to anybody who's a leader in the government. I never see them around my town. And, if a few that have reached out to any of the local elected officials, if they hear back, it's not like their problem gets fixed. So there's frustration with government on a lot of levels across both aisles. So having a conversation with somebody there willing to listen, even if you don't agree on a lot of the issues, and there's going to be issues we don't agree on. There's a lot of stuff we do. Money in politics is something that frustrates everybody. There's nobody out there saying, I wish my politician were more corrupt, right? So that's always a great starting point. And then you can pivot that into really any direction that they want to take it. Because as you know, money in politics is so pervasive that it does affect every issue. Why do people vote the way they do? Why do they propose the bills or not propose certain bills? It's because of who's on their team and who's working behind them, telling them what we want our legislators to do or not do. And that means that our roads don't always get fixed as well as they should, and money that's supposed to go to one place maybe goes to another, and that's something that we can all agree needs to change.
Right. I don't think anybody would mind, a decent set of a bookkeeping ability. Um, but well, when you ran against all six people, how much did you win by? What was it? What were the vote totals? Do you recall?
So the incumbent got 30% of the vote. I got 26% of the vote. And then the third place guy got about 23%. So between second and third, it was relatively close. Everyone else was kind of in single digits there. The most notable part of that was the incumbent, who again has served in office for 10 years. He was until Monday, he was the minority leader of the Republicans. He just got removed for all those scandals that I was talking about earlier. But, this is a guy who should be absolutely running laps around the field. He's got the most money by far, the most name recognition, and he's been in office for 10 years. Yet, he only got 30% of the vote, which statewide was the lowest for any incumbent assembly member seeking re-election in 2026. So
Wow.
that goes to show there's a lot of dissatisfaction here on, again, both sides. Between second and third was pretty close because the third place guy was another Republican. All the local county parties rejected endorsing the incumbent, and they all endorsed this guy running against him, which is pretty telling as well. So I had to fight not only the corrupt incumbent and all of his money, but the Republican Party who had backed a second candidate. So, we managed to beat the Republican Party in our district this time around, which has, again, not been done in all of the last 10 years, while also having to fight off the big money and corporate interests that the incumbent brought to the table. It was a really interesting race.
Everybody, kind of simply thinks it's the person who gets the most votes wins, but the money is just. I'm going to tell you I'm convinced that's what led to Ada Bersenia not winning in District 68. I think it is. I think there's just so much outside money, especially against a Latino labor leader
Right.
that and I mean I really tried whatever I could do to help Ada. I've always I always really respected her, and to me, you know, considering the way she came as a refugee with her parents, and the job in the hotel, and to the union leader and all this, to me that's the American story, the American dream. I mean, somebody coming to the country and working themselves up into good paying positions. And when outside money comes in and is able to distort that sort of person's character, I get more than a little testy. Like I say, when you start mentioning money in politics, I'm like, please don't let Norman go on too much.
No,
But
it's absolutely true. Outside money can corrupt a narrative that, locals may not feel that way, but you repeat and you think about the stuff that you see every day. And if what you see is dominated by these outside interests, it's going to corrupt things. It absolutely is.
are you guys starting to get any data center interest? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so the guy that got third place, his campaign manager is the Lodi City Council member. At the time, he was the mayor last year, and he was proposing a data center coming to Lodi. And that, thank God, luckily got rejected by not only every city council member, but almost every resident in Lodi was yelling out, please don't do this. Like, even the guys that supported him on, his most far right opinions, they're like, we've seen what happens when data centers come to the city, which is, really refreshing to see. The fight's not over. Once, if it gets brought up once, it's going to get brought up again, because the interest there was, money and how much money it could bring into the city. So that's always going to be in the back of the mind of these folks. So it's like, well, how can we balance a budget without cutting this and that? Well, we could bring in the data center. Obviously, we know that's going to be horrific for our town. And it's not just Lodi. As I said, I got a pretty large district a little bit north of us, one of the rural areas in a town called Harold. They're fighting off a data center as well. So there's many different places that we're going to have to be very vigilant about making sure that doesn't get in, because in the Delta region we quite rely on, like everybody else, clean water, agriculture. That's one of our major industries. If we introduce a data center into a place like this, not only are we going to have all that pollution coming in that affects us on a human level, but forget about having anything clean and fresh and getting our agriculture to grow like it used to.
When I'm convinced when people make deals with data centers, they just don't sell their soul. They sell their kids' souls and whoever might come near that land, in the
Yeah.
future. So, and as farmers don't really need more competition for water, do they?
No, absolutely not. We consistently have a lot of folks that are having to once again fight. And this is an area that, again, Democrats and Republicans agree on in the Central Valley. We don't want our water to go someplace else. A lot of times, governors, Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom both talked about wanting to do a tunnels program that would take the Central Valley water and ship that down to Southern California. And that would be a system that, quite frankly, wouldn't work for either region, because it would really punish the Central Valley. And then it would make it so the Southern California residents don't really have a long-term water solution, because that water would run out. We need to develop a system where they can get water themselves down there. That's something that the local politicians in the state, I'd be willing to work on with them. But the solution's not to take from us, because we're the most productive agricultural region in the state. And if California loses agriculture, forget about being the fifth largest economy in the world. We're going to start dropping.
Well, that's what it just scares the living daylights out of me, Matthew. I mean, uh, I and it's so new. We have no idea how long the bad stuff is going to hang around. But I think
Yeah.
that's the reason they have that name, Forever Chemical.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So tell me something good. What are you going to do for the weekend to kind of get out?
Well, I always look forward to having the weekend ahead of me with some events. Like I said, I'm lucky this week to be very booked. So I've got some organizations that I'm going to be working with this weekend. I'm going to be going back to Galt. We're going to be working out a plan for our town hall that we've got coming up next week. This will be our first one for after the primary. That's always very exciting. We get to coordinate with another candidate for the first time too. So I'm running for a state assembly. There's going to be a state senate candidate that overlaps with me. We're going to have a town hall next week. So we're going to plan what that looks like, get some food ready, get some of our prep out there, and that'll be fun.
Well, if he's a decent guy, tell him to get in touch.
Oh yeah, I will. I'll let him know that this is the show to go on. Have a fun conversation.
Well, yeah, I try, and like I said, the only thing I really want to do is show Democrats in the best light possible, because there's I it astounds me that that we're not that we're having to do this. That
Yeah,
Democrats just, I mean, we've always had the better answers. We may not have always had the better organization, but we've always had the better answers.
yeah. As you know, there's a real PR problem with the Democratic Party and Democrats nationwide that really have a tough time talking to folks and communicating on a simple level about what we want to do and how we've achieved it over the last decade plus. Policies that Democrats propose are really quite popular. I say Democrats, I mean, even a lot of the democratic socialist policies that people put out there are quite popular if you remove the label of who proposed it or what the name that they're using on Fox News for it is. People want Medicare for all. People want, their prices to go down at the gas pump. And the solutions for that sort of stuff we have. It's just, doesn't, a lot of times people don't give us credit because of the D next to people's names. There's a problem right now in terms of media online, and I'm sure you've got a version of this yourself in your area. We've got a Facebook page, blog, Instagram post, all that stuff called the 209 Times, and their whole thing is misinformation and constant like flood the zone with, criminal, racist behavior that they put out there. And it's like, look how terrible our city is. Look how terrible our area is. And we all know who's to blame. It's, the Democrats and the immigrants and the gays and you name it, right? It got so bad that, the Stockton city mayor, Michael Tubbs, when he was mayor a little under a decade ago, he was the city's first black mayor. And he got absolutely destroyed in the next primary after he got elected, because this 209 Times has just been gearing up all of this racist hate against him. And, nobody's a perfect politician. Maybe he could have lost that election in another way, but it was no coincidence after the city elected their first black mayor, suddenly the city that had been reliably Democratic for decades turned Republican. We're still dealing with the outpouring of misinformation and hate from that group. That, as I'm an asexual man myself, and the homophobia that I've dealt with coming from that page and that page's supporters has been horrendous. And the Democrats don't really have an answer on how we can stop this stuff. So we need all the supportive media we can get.
Right. Well, I'm happy to help any way I can, and I want to share a Democratic Socialist thing with you that I'm in favor of. Of course, I'm not in favor of every socialist
Of
proposal,
course.
but I like what Mamdani's proposed in New York City relative to putting grocery stores where there aren't any.
Yeah,
People are entitled to eat on some level, which suggests they should
I
have some
agree.
some means to get the food to eat on some level.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if it's not profitable for a public corporation to put a store there, then I don't have any problem having a government-run store in places like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all heard about food deserts and the devastating effects they can have on particularly our lower income and communities, and oftentimes those are communities with predominantly people of color, and that's no coincidence. If the alternative is people starve and die, yeah, the government should be stepping in there. It's not about the money, it's about human lives at that point. I agree.
I had somebody call the other day, and they were telling me what a pro-Trump person they were, and I said, "Well, why? I'll listen to you. I may call you names when you get through, but I'll listen to you." And the
Sure.
guy says, "Well, he's a Christian." I'm like, "Well, is that when he cut the food stamp benefits, or is that when he closed the rural health care?" I'm a little hazy on this concept, the way you explain it to me. Yeah, I always thought it was like what, heal the sick, clothe the naked, feed the hungry, shelter the unsheltered. I mean, how they get to this convoluted end, I just have it astounds me.
Yeah, it's very interesting whenever you get somebody coming up knowing that they're going to oppose you. I was at my farmers market in town last night, and I got some people coming up to our table who, were clearly supporting Trump, and that's what they came over to talk about, knowing that they were picking a fight and wanting to disagree. And I, like you, I'm willing to listen. I'll talk to anybody if they're going to come out and make the time. But there does seem to be a lot of like, I not everybody, but there's a lot of folks that come out there from the right wing MAGA side that it's like, it's not really about coming to understand better who you are or what the representation is going to look like. It's like, I want you to be uncomfortable in this moment, and I want you to be in pain going forward. And that's my policies. It really doesn't matter how, me personally, if I'm in pain too, if I'm hurting, as long as you're hurting and I get to see that, that brings me joy. Again, it's not everybody out there that's on that side, but there's a certain faction of the party on that side that just really revels in causing others pain. And, I know that they don't believe in government in the same way that we do, but government should be to help people, right? I've always believed that, and I think a lot of us do. If your whole policy is how can we hurt the most people, you don't really have a place in government. But unfortunately, a lot of those folks are in government right now. So we need to come up with a strategy on how we can combat that hate and hurt and get us back on the right track.
Well, I think I'm talking to one of the people that can do that.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, Matthew, we wish you nothing but the best on the second. I'll keep my eye on you. And if you're ever inclined to call in, the numbers, well, you know the number is.
I
And
see it up there. Yeah.
like I say, if I can be of any help, please let me know. It'd be a real pleasure to see you, with your fist pumped in the air on the night of November 2nd. And we'll be thinking good thoughts.
Thank you very much. And yeah, for any listeners that want to support me, you can look me up, Matthew Adams for Assembly. I'm on all the social medias and my website, Adams, the number 4, assembly.com. Check me out. We'll be posting stuff and getting all out there all the way through November. These last 3 months is going to be an absolute sprint. So thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, well, Matthew, it's funny. I'm a little hard of hearing. Was that Matthew Adams 4? It was you. What was that again?
Yeah, so Matthew Adams for Assembly. You can, and that's the number 4, That'll be
Good
my
deal.
all my social media, and then my website, Adams for Assembly, ADAMS for assembly.com.
Good deal. Matthew, thanks a million for making time to chat with us. And like
Yeah,
I say, if I can be of any help, I'm a phone call or text or DM away.
thank you so much. Have a great
May
rest of
the
your
force
show.
be with you. Take care. Bye now. So, ladies and gentlemen, there we heard from Matthew Adams from the Central Valley. And, I'm glad I got to ask him about the data center problem because I cannot. I mean, water is such a scarce or precious resource in the West. And they even have groups like I think it's called the Western Rivers Conservancy Group that works to actually will buy parts of rivers to clean them. And we can't. Earth is kind of a nice place as it is now, and we really shouldn't do too much to make the place radioactive or blow it up. And so, of course, the fewer nukes, the better. But we still have no idea which way. Oh, and there's a phrase I'm going to ease into here, and the phrase is, "I think the president has a credibility problem." I know I can knock you over with a feather with that, but he's got a credibility problem. Is what he says worthy of being believed? Because that's the root of credibility, is worthy of being believed. And let's say you were Mohammed bin Salman, a Saudi prince. And I think the cool people call him MBS. But since we're not cool people, we're going to call him what he really is. We're going to call him Mo BS. So Mo BS, wants this nuclear reactor. And of course, Trump is happy to sell it to him. I'm sure there's be a little referral fee or, consultation fee involved, whatever it is. Uh, so, Trump is going to introduce nuclear power to a country to acknowledge. Israel's got them; they don't acknowledge it. So, officially, who knows? But the word is they have a good many, and but yeah. So now we're gonna have nuclear reactor in Saudi Arabia, and now of course that Trump shakes hands with Mobius, and the next day he goes, "Oops, you guys, I forgot to mention this. Oh, and another thing, like my grandmother would do. And another thing, you got to join the Abraham Accords and recognize Israel's right to exist, so on and so forth." So Mobius just kind of shakes his head and walks away. And the reason Mobius is able to shake his head and walk away is there's probably some sort of a contract signed somewhere that says they're getting the nuclear reactor. Of course they'll pay for it, but I guarantee there's evidence somewhere that there's a contract done. And God knows we don't need to. I mean, who's going to want a reactor after that? Yeah, the whole each country in the Middle East is going to want to have the bomb, and you can't. I just feel that Trump has just sped us to the point of borderline self-destruction. I mean, how long will it be before the land in Gaza is habitable? I have a hard time believing that all those bombs and munitions and God knows, and I'm sure don't they have like chemical bombs they drop or stuff that sprays chemicals, and how long does this stuff last? I was teasing Matthew about the term forever chemical, uh, but yeah, I mean I don't know. And I certainly don't think that the answer to every problem is, build a casino or hotel or resort. That's uh, more than a little tone deaf, more a little inappropriate, but perfectly on target for guys like Trump and his buddies who, it's apparently it's against the rules to think about like other people and be considerate, because if you think about other people and are considerate, you probably get fired. I mean, even Christine Nome, who killed her puppy, got a job from Trump. You got to be really bad to get fired from him, right? Uh, and I don't want to, of course, make any aspersions relative to her family situation. I can only hope that everybody's family life should be secret and should be sacred to them. So we hope whatever personal problems that came from that are resolved. But in the meantime, she did write about it and put it in a book. So take that for what it's worth. And my granddad used to remind me that sometimes life is just a little IQ test. So I think we know kind of what happened on that one. And so let's see, guys. And of course, Zelensky's just getting killed, waiting for interceptors that only coming from us. And let's see, how about this? Uh, ooh. Now, as I was looking, I think this was, it may have been in the Financial Times. And would you believe that maybe 12 or 13 of Trump's personal lawyers now have like really good positions of power in the court and the judicial system? I mean, he's got the criminals ready to call the balls and the strikes. And not one judge was nominated for his ability, not one. And it's too bad I didn't ask Trump because he probably could have done this job himself. But when you're an orange tinged subhuman being, subhuman creature that lives in the White House, you sometimes can be a little unsure what to do. Except when in doubt, you could go run up the taxpayer bill and hit a few more rounds of bucket of balls, Don. I mean, what's 100 million right now, huh? I mean, that's what you spent this year golfing. Do you know how many women that could have saved? How many kids that could have fed? How many, crazy people could have been helped? And it doesn't matter. And just like the East Wing didn't matter, just like the UFC didn't matter, just like the reflecting pool. I mean, you just one disaster after another. And the truth of that is, you've always been like this. Trump's always been like this. I know the power of the media just, made them look the other way. Sad but true. But I mean, it's not like Trump just kind of, he didn't just fall off the turnip truck, if you know what I mean. He's been around for a while, and you can trace his views, back to his dad. They wouldn't rent to black people in New York, and I'm sure that blacks are a fairly decent segment of population there. And when you don't give somebody shelter and you give somebody else shelter for no other reason other than the color of their skin, then that's textbook discrimination. And I want to remind everybody all over again, and again, is that the difference between me and a black person, or you and a black person, is pigment. It's color. It's skin color. It's not. It's just a little pigment. It's just insane the way people get all worked up about this. But I guess, don't you have to think about the Bible and the lost tribe being black or something, and that Ham or something? I don't know. I'm not exactly a biblical scholar, but like I did get across to Matthew, I do have a certain fundamental grasp on these things. And like I say, I'm pretty sure Jesus would have healed the sick and fed the hungry, clothed the naked, sheltered the shelterless, or given shelter to someone without. I mean, we've all seen people with, a step for a pillow and a street for a bed. And as a society, we'd like to, do much better than that. It's going to take a boatload of money. I mean, don't get this started. I'll go through this again. I've got a little time here. And I always try to tell people, or remind people, that Ronald Reagan was the root cause of all this. And they go, well, Reagan, what did he do? I'm like, well, thought you never asked, pal. Because here's what Reagan did. In I don't know, 80 something, whenever Reagan was in office, he was a California governor, and he thought that the government got in the way too much. That the government regulations they just need to get out of the way and let business people do things. And we know what happens when business people do things. When business people rush in and do things, everybody else gets screwed. But they don't really care about that. And like I say, until we just lay down the law of voting rights to Trump, he's going to keep doing what he can do, because in D.C., guess what, folks? Guess what he has? And guess what we don't have? That's right, power. And if you, and I say this every show, if you ain't got power in DC, you ain't got bupkis. And bupkis is pretty bad. And that's the only thing worse than bupkis is skadukas. You could get like, I don't know, 10 bupkises for one skadukas. So you really got to watch out, what kind of bupkis you want. And unfortunately, Trump knows the only kind of bupkis Trump knows is actually, he's had such a life of abundance. He may not know, and he's such a weird guy. Doesn't anybody with that kind of wealth have like a boat to go hang out on? I mean, no boat. I you know, and I know the the joke about there aren't a whole lot of famous Jewish yachtsmen, but Kushner could have a decent sized boat. I mean, at the very least, they could come by like I don't know a dozen sunfish and go hang out and wherever they hang out. I mean, they could have small boats; it wouldn't matter. But I bet I shouldn't go. This is kind of personal stuff. I shouldn't go on like this, but I bet Trump can't even swim. I bet he might be one of those people that's just petrified to go out on the water. Oh, and I'll tell you a quick story about that. I had taken this woman sailing a long time, actually not too long ago, and I've been trying to get her to go sail with me for ages, and she'd never come. And finally, I got her to say yes. So we come down. I use Orange Coast College's Harbor 20s, and so she's down here, and I rig the boat. We leave the dock and all that, and sail. And I notice she's like really nervous. And I'm like, you okay? She goes, well, no, I'm a little scared. I'm like, well, of what? And she goes, Jaws. So are you afraid of Jaws? And she goes, yeah. So this is Newport Harbor. It's like, 10 or 12 feet deep. Pools are deeper than this thing, so on and so forth. And so I finally get her to relax and all that. And so, we're sailing along, and I'm kind of laid back. I've got like, I never, I've got my left hand on the tiller, and I'm dragging my right hand in the water, just like you would do. And so she's really relaxed, and I'm dragging my hand on the water, and all of a sudden I grab a pick. I got it! I got that! And, and of course she jumps, and by this time I'm laughing hysterically, right? Because I didn't, I didn't get bit or anything. I just panicked the 11 daylights of someone who's afraid of sharks. So I don't think she saw it quite the way I did. I thought it was astoundingly funny. Uh, and then didn't I do something else? Oh yeah. Oh, so after I get her to calm down, finally, I'm like, I don't know what you're really worried about anyway. Jaws aren't really a problem here. The problem is when a whale breaches the surface and throws the boat, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 feet in the air. And whether you come down in the boat or out of the boat, it's an entirely different question. That's what you got to watch out about. And I see this wide look of just stark terror in this woman's face. And, and of course, about this time, that's like all I need to break into hysterics. So anyway, just a little boat stories and how to get somebody to not want to sail with you ever again. Uh, so guys, it's been a long week, hasn't it? It's Friday, the 7th of August, and my throat's getting ready to go because it is about an hour, and even when I have somebody on, my voice goes after an hour. I must talk too much even when they're on. Because that was really nice of Matthew Adams and Lodi to come on District 9 and go get him, Matthew. If, call in if we can do anything, let us know. And guys, I just want everybody to have a good weekend. Stay safe. And what do we always do about this time? Don't we always say something like, Roger Wilco